Hello, I'm a traditional artist, so I make things such as these, but I also want to learn how to draw digitally. So come join me on my journey to master Procreate, because that's all I have right now. Let's get started. So the image on the left is a drawing I drew ages ago but never got to actually color it. And I wanted to give her a bit more personality, so I drew a little bit more of an intimate pose but kept the line thicknesses really thick to show that she's not very sociable or not very approachable. Because in order to give a drawing more personality, you need to be able to actually describe what their personality is and portray it properly onto the canvas. Of course, at the end of the day, it all depends on how well I color it, because if I color it really poorly, you won't even know. After finishing the base of the sketch, I had to run quick color tests on the skirt just to see if it's even shadable. After a few corrections, I began outlining. When it comes to outlining, I like to play a lot with line thicknesses to show direction, thickness, curls, wrinkles, everything. Okay, so after the eternity it took me just to do this part, I am stuck on the hands. And I looked at references, I kept trying, I tried everything. At this point it was like rescale the whole arm, or you know what, just cover it up with foreground, and that's what I went with. More about this drawing is that it's heavily inspired by Lolita Gothic fashion, and so naturally she became more vampire than human because Gothic fashion is the most perfect vampire fashion ever. Anyways, back on topic, I struggled with this hand quite a bit, but in the end I actually got it. I'm very proud of that fact because that was hard. Not because hands are hard, but because the angle is just weird. I planned on adding a light in the background, but for some reason in that moment I felt really inspired to draw a lamppost. And not just any ordinary lamppost, kind of like a fantasy lamppost, except I just ended up putting a bunch of shapes and stuff that I like on there, so I don't know what kind of lamppost that is, but it is definitely unique. Alas, we reached the part where I started adding all the base color to everything. It's mainly all in the grayscale, because that's the vibe I was going for. The lamppost is really bright, but I hope to darken it out later. Now I'm screen recording, as this is the part where I do a lot of guesswork and experimentation. Mainly because I have no idea what I'm doing, so it'd be nice to look back and see what I did, what works, what doesn't work, as you can do as well. Now you probably noticed to the left I have an image which I'm using as a reference for the sky, although I'm doing the sky completely different. I just wanted the coloring because I wanted to go with more bluish light in the backdrop. So I'm trying out a different brush to add some texture to the sky by just scribbling it all over the place, but zooming out it didn't quite look right, so I scribbled even more, hoping it would all blend together and somehow look better. I never go through layer mode, so I decided to experiment with that and see what exactly I could do with them. So in the end, I decided to go with this one that changed it from a blue sky to a sunset because I thought it'd be really cute. So of course I had edited a bit more to make it look more sunsetty. So I filled in these shapes of yellow in the sky and then just changed the opacity and put them everywhere. My attempt at shading is not really the best. I mean, I put a shadow in the background to make it darker and then tried to add light to the lamppost. But of course I wanted blue light, so then you have this really weird layering. But hey, it's unique. Time for the gravel path, so I did a really lazy method of just putting a bunch of shapes and then like putting more shapes on top of that and then coloring it in. Of course I then darkened it because it was looking kind of funky and didn't quite match. Now the path was lacking any real shading, so I did this method I learned from a VTuber where you just put the brightness all the way down and play with the curves and then just change the opacity. You can also, I believe it's called alpha lock the layer after, and just customize the color of the shadow that way as well. These bushes need some texture, so I'm using the airbrush because that's really the only thing I know how to use properly, even though a lot of people don't really like it. Anyways, I'm messing around with the iPad pressure sensitivity to get some places darker, some places lighter, and I'm also adding a few other colors to the mix. The sun rays also need to be added to the bushes as well, so I did this trying out overlay to see how that would turn out. Out of the 3 different bushes I colored, I think the foreground bush looked the best. It was like the least weird looking one and was rich in color. Because of that, I switched the layer mode on the back bushes to multiply so it fits in a little more. With the background being finished, I'm finally coloring the subject. I started with her hair specifically. That was mainly because it was a lot easier for me to work with the light being behind her and the sunset in the background. My thought process is basically like, if I can shade the hair right, it'll help me understand where to shade on the dress. The dress wasn't too difficult to shade as I went with a more geometric style for the dress. In other words, the wrinkles were a lot easier to do. As for how I designed the dress originally, I think it was actually because I didn't want something too difficult to draw when going back to my previous sketch. But looking back at my sketch after ages, I really like the design I chose for the dress. I mean, it really suits the character, at least what I was going for when drawing it. If I were to redesign it now after having drawn the whole thing, I would change all the trims and everything, maybe to like lace or something once I know how to draw lace. But overall, my favorite part of coloring this dress was actually the sleeves, because look how pretty that is. As to why there are bandages, I don't exactly remember. I do remember I wanted to add gloves, but they wouldn't be seen since the photo was cropped. And I guess my solution to that was to just add bandages for the sleeves and then the middle part to match. The coolest part about rewatching this recording is just seeing the dress be shaded over. It looks so satisfying to me. Again, this is with the airbrush. Moving on to the skin, she's supposed to be pale, and I'm not good at coloring skin in the first place, so coloring someone pale is even harder for me. I was especially having trouble with the blush. I mean, I spent way too long trying to figure this out and eventually just settled for like 2 little dots on the cheek and 1 on the nose. I almost forgot about the legs, but thankfully I remembered. Oh, you can't exactly see what I shaded, so I was trying to find a better color. In the end, I just left it as it is. At this point, the path was bothering me, so I duplicated it to try to see if I can make the better one on top without messing up my layer, and I ended up making it brown and it looked so much better. For the rose, I just used simple airbrush again, and I tried to copy the layer and spread it onto the other roses, but it didn't quite look right, so eventually I was like, oh, I have to do it myself. So I did that for every single rose. In doing so, the outline of the roses got colored, so I wanted to do that to the other rose as well to make it look prettier. And along with that, I decided to color the rest of the outline slightly as well. Moving on to the eyes, I went with a really simple shading for this one. I didn't want her eyes to be like too deep, and she's kind of just lost in thought staring at the rose. So I didn't really need to make it look like an entire ocean is in there. Although if I did, it would be a nice bloody ocean. Oh, we don't need that either. I may have made the eyes simple, but of course I still added the glint or else she would have been straight up soulless. I wanted a unique color, but that was way too pink, so I do change it afterwards. Yeah, none of these really work, so I just move on and do the good old classic feather. Like my favorite tool to use right now with just anything, although I didn't use it that much for this drawing. What I find crazy is that even after adding the glint, what made the biggest difference in the eye was just adding the shadow to it. I wanted the earrings to be red, so I borrowed the color off of her eyes, even though it's more pink than red, because then at least it would match and her earrings would complement her eyes. Would you look at that? I finally remembered to close that side window. I'm really trying to add more atmosphere here. So after doing that, I wanted to play around with more of the adjustments, and the best way to do that was to compress all your layers. So I decided to duplicate every single one of them into a new group and merge them all together. Okay, what happened? I tried different things like rearranging the layer order or combining them in a different order, and I did get different results, which is weird, but eventually I got this. Since I found it really cool looking, I decided to mess with it to see if I could use it. And here's the end result that I settled on. Overall, I think it would have been much faster had I drawn it on an actual piece of paper and colored it on there as well. But anyways, it's clear to me to see that I need to improve on using different brushes as well as adjustments. So that'll be my focus for my next drawing. Anyways, if you wanted to see the recording without any voiceover, here is the speed draw.